Hey everyone, welcome back to the dannphan. We're talking about One Piece. It's actually been quite a while since I last talked about One Piece. I used to talk about it all the time, but yeah, recently events have happened in One Piece that require a video to be made about it. It's kind of hard to ignore, especially after it was trending for so long, and I have a theory that it's going to be trending again sometime this week. So I waited until the officially translated chapter came out of 1044, but if you have not personally read it yet and you do not want to be spoiled for what happened in One Piece, you will have to click off this video because we're talking about major spoilers, of course. Granted, there's no particular reason why you haven't read it yet. You've had plenty of time to go and read it for yourself. Anyway, so in the latest chapter of One Piece, 1044, Luffy did get a new form. But it's not necessarily the new form that people are super hyped about, it's the reason for the new form. Rather than him trying to figure out a new way to use his rubber powers in order to get stronger and get these different forms like we've seen before, Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd, and Gear 4th, he instead wakes up after theoretically dying, you know, his heart stopped for a while, and when it restarts, it looks like there's an implied musical tone to his heartbeat, which is peculiar, and he's also acting kinda weird, almost possessed even, although people don't want to use the word possessed to describe why he's in such a good mood all of a sudden. I don't even know if I could call it a good mood. Like, he's laughing hysterically. It's still Luffy, you know, it's not like he's somebody else who just took over Luffy's body, but, you know, something's clearly off about him. And he notes that this new form is him at his peak, which probably means that we won't get another form after this. This is like the last and ultimate form, and he doesn't really know what happened to him, but he calls this new form his Gear 5th because he just feels so powerful, like he can do anything. Now, as far as the abilities in this new form, it looks like most of what we've seen before, but plus the awakening of his devil fruit, meaning he can actually turn things around him into rubber or have rubber properties. But everything else, for the most part, we've kind of seen before. Him, you know, growing his hands or growing his muscles or stretching, obviously. But rather instead, he's not necessarily blowing air into his hand, or at least it's not shown him blowing air into any part of his body to achieve this. It looks like it's just kind of happening without having to do that type of stuff. So maybe that's the idea that Oda is trying to get across. But what's more notable is how Oda chose to show him doing all this crazy, wacky stuff is way more cartoony than normal, usual One Piece fights. And I do think it's intentional, like we're trying to do the Mask meets One Piece type idea with this. But getting to the reason why this new form exists, why we're in Gear 5th all of a sudden, is revealed by the Gorosei, who have been looking for the Gomu Gomu no Mi for a while now. And they revealed that the reason why they've been trying to get this fruit is because of its power being the most ridiculous in the world. They then reveal to the audience that it's not actually a paramecia, which people have kind of theorized before, that maybe there's some kind of secret behind Luffy's devil fruit, and it seems like that's the direction that we're going in the story now. That the Gomu Gomu no Mi is also referred to the Hito Hito no Mi, human fruit, type Nika, as in Nika the sun god, which has been, you know, mentioned before in the story of One Piece, this idea of Nika the sun god. And it's also hinted that Joy Boy had this devil fruit before Luffy. That's been hinted at before. But now it seems they almost kinda confirmed it, with Tsunesha basically saying Luffy is Joy Boy and recognizing that power. But yeah, basically Luffy's new form is because his devil fruit is actually going to be a Zoan, a mythical Zoan. He's now the sun god. So, you know, in reaction to this, people are kind of divided about how they feel about it. On one hand, you get the people who are saying this is a retcon, it's just an excuse to give Luffy a new form. And on the other hand, people are saying, no, Oda clearly planned this out from the beginning. He's a genius. He got you all. To some extent, I kind of agree with both sides. I do think that it's a retcon. I don't think that Oda had this planned out from chapter 1. Don't get me wrong, I think that Oda definitely started One Piece with an ending in mind, and I think every single time he starts a new arc of One Piece, he has the ending in mind. I don't think that he just does it chapter by chapter and makes it up as he goes along. But writers don't really write down every single tiny detail when they're starting a series, they're just mostly thinking of outlines. And Oda, being a very slow burn type of writer, he had plenty of time to change his mind on certain things or come up with new ideas and put them into the... I don't think that One Piece was actually supposed to be this long when Oda started it. I think that he's just gotten so many new and different ideas and decided to add that into the series. And I'd be willing to bet that this idea to change Luffy's Devil Fruit to being something different is probably an idea that he came up with much later in the series. Maybe not like immediately when he started the Wano arc, but I definitely wouldn't say from chapter 1. But I can understand why it's so divisive among how the fandom is reacting to this, because I think one of the charming things about One Piece is the fact that Luffy kind of got stuck with a silly devil fruit that was seen as not being worthy of defeating all these other enemies. It was seen as not being a very strong devil fruit. And kind of the point of following Luffy on his journey is to see what he can do with a weak power, like all the different ways, because, you know, he's kind of trying to be clever with it. While he's not very clever in other parts of One Piece, he is clever with finding new ways to use his power and learning haki, learning new powers, new abilities. And you could argue that by retconning his Devil Fruit, you're kind of taking that away from One Piece. Because now it seems like, oh, well, why didn't he just win from the beginning? He could have just decided to win if he knew what his Devil Fruit actually could do. You know, why hasn't he transformed into God Nikki before when he's almost died in a ton of fights, right? So why hasn't this happened before? That's a fair question. Why hasn't the government been after him before, despite having all these different chances to capture him? If they knew that this Devil Fruit was like secretly this ultra powerful devil fruit, then, you know, how did they mess up this bad by letting him get all the way to Wano? We're almost at the end of One Piece. They're just now figuring this out. I feel like all those questions are fairly valid. They can be answered, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Oda wrote himself into a hole or anything. He can definitely, like, you know, figure out explanations for all these questions. Now, he's not necessarily retconning the already established powers of the Devil Fruit, because they do say when you eat the Devil Fruit, you're going to have the properties of rubber. That's like part of it. But actually transforming into the God Nikki form is another part of it that they were trying to keep secret. Now, Zoans typically have 3 forms, or, you know, if you're Chopper, you get 1,000,000 forms. But for the most part, it is your regular form, usually being a human form, your fully transformed form, a little redundant, I know. But then you can also get your third middle form, which is kind of a mix of both. So that kind of makes me wonder if we're going with the Zoan route with this Devil Fruit, is it just when he ate the fruit that he was already like at a middle form with the Devil Fruit? Like there is no 1, 2, 3 form, but rather there's just 2 forms, and one of them is permanent rubber body just by default. I feel like that's kind of where they're going with this, but you know, this is a special Devil Fruit, obviously. All the more reason why they tried to keep it under wraps. There's also questions like, oh, did Shanks know about this? Did all these other people who were after Luffy know about this? Probably not. I think this, if they're going to go with the idea that the Gorosei was trying to keep this under wraps, then it's probably just the top of the top who knew about this secret. Because here, I'm assuming that like the government releases all this information about the devil fruits, gives them names and everything, gives everyone a catalog so they know what to look for, and I assume they encourage people to like turn in devil fruits that they find and, I don't know, maybe compensate them. So this would give them all the power to misinform the wide public knowledge of this devil fruit. It also brings up the question, are there any other devil fruits that have secret powers that they're keeping from people? And another thing that they mentioned in there that I'm sure people are going to be talking about for a while is the fact that they said that Zoan devil fruits have a will of their own. Calls into question the origin of devil fruits, of course. Why do they have wills of their own? What went into the creation of these devil fruits? And do smiles also have a will of their own, or that's just special, that's artificial, so therefore has no will? Was God Nika an actual god that was just like shoved into a devil fruit? Does that apply with other Zoan devil fruits? Are they just like taking animals and just shoving them in? Is that why they taste so bad? Because they're not cooked? But yeah, a lot of questions to be answered. I assume most of those questions we'll have to wait for, but as far as what Luffy can actually do in this new form, I think we'll get to know more about that in the following chapters coming up. The way that they describe his powers seems kind of vague. They're basically just saying, oh, they can do whatever they want with their body. They're only limited by their imagination. And I've seen like people commenting on the idea that, oh, they foreshadowed this before because this explains how Luffy was able to use fire in his attacks. It's because he imagined the fire and therefore he's subconsciously doing red hot. I find it admirable that you think so highly of Oda that would be the reason that he planned ahead, but no, I don't think that's it. Keep in mind, guys, some parts of One Piece are just like cartoony and don't have an explanation for it. Sanji can literally just light his whole body on fire and be fine. And there's really no explanation for where the flames come from. They just kinda... Obviously, it seems like how his body moves is kind of referencing older cartoons or a rubber hose type of animation style, and I'm sure it'll look really fun when it gets animated. But really, like I said before, the only thing that we're really seeing that's new from this form is, well, obviously the look of it, the fact that Luffy is laughing like a maniac, and the awakening. Him being able to also turn things around him into rubber, or at least have rubber properties. But everything else we've kind of seen before, just in different forms. So is the idea that maybe Gear 5th is just taking everything from the previous gears and then also adding awakening as a part of it? Or is the vagueness implying that there's really no limit to what he can do? Is he literally just going to follow cartoon logic when he's in this form? Can he actually just be the mask and do anything? We're not exactly sure, but we're gonna find out because you gotta at least have explanation for what he can do. You have to actually have a set of rules for a form when you show it off. Now, other questions to ask. Does it have a drawback? Like his other gears usually had some negative thing happen to Luffy once he's done with the form. I mean, whatever the drawback for Gear 5th could be, it's not as bad as Luffy being dead before even turning into the Gear 5th form. But if it doesn't have any drawback, then is there really any reason to turn into any of the other gears besides his most powerful gear, you know? And now that the secret is out, now that Luffy has transformed into Nika and awakened his devil fruit and everything, does that mean that the government is going to have more and more of a presence in the story of One Piece as they're trying to, you know, end Luffy and get his devil fruit? For the people who are not feeling the retcon, not really appreciating how Luffy's efforts are kind of being thrown to the side. It's just like, oh, you could have just transformed into Nika and just decided to win if you wanted to so badly. I totally get that. I 100% understand that feeling. At the end of the day, I'm always excited when Luffy gets a new form, and I think that the twist is really interesting, and I want to see where Oda goes with this. So regardless of how you feel about the new form, I think it's worth giving a chance. But yeah, here, cheers to 1045 when that comes out in a day or two. Whenever I upload this video, I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your own theories, predictions. If you would like to answer any of the questions that I asked in this video, down below, go ahead. Like the video if you did enjoy my brief, not so brief discussion. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, bye.
Program restart.